Hello, everybody. Welcome to Write Something Weird, your favorite literary show where we talk about creating cool art and building bookish communities. I'm Sophie Stern, a paranormal romance author, and I'm here today with my wonderful guest, Neal. Hi, Neal.
Hey, yeah. Hey, Sophie.
So, you and I met on Blue Sky. This is
Mhm.
one of my favorite places to meet authors. I've met so many cool creatives there. And I just feel like it's a really fun place to be a part of a community. A lot of writers and artists in particular tend to be kind of self-isolating because we work alone. Can you talk a little bit about your experience, like being part of like the writing community or what you look for in a community?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's cool that you talk about Blue Sky because it's I've been on a lot of the social media platforms and being on Twitter forever.
Yeah.
And I've left Twitter like so many of us, and like nothing happened on Twitter for years and very little traction. And then Blue Sky, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, interesting people, and I'm kind of connecting with people,
Yeah.
and it's quite cool. And there is a really great writers community there, and
Yeah.
kind of create a community. But yeah, like connecting with writers is kind of, I think, as you're saying, is always tricky because as a writer, you're quite isolated. And I do really well when I'm connected with other people, but
Yeah.
I avoid other people like crazy. So
Okay.
uh, I'm like, I know I do well if I'm like, oh, I'm in a group and stuff, but I
Yeah.
resist being in a group. And I actually just, oddly enough, just started today, kind of not too long before this call, I started working. I met with a writing group for the first time. In
Okay.
a, I haven't really had a writing group that I've met with
Yeah.
regularly for a while. And it was just somebody who I knew, who was doing the group, and I was like, "Oh, you want to show up?" Just kind of, and I'm always like, "Oh, is it going to be the right people? Is it going to be the right?
Yeah.
It's going to be the right vibe?" And I'm just kind of getting my head about it. And I was like, "Just show up. This doesn't matter. Just show up."
Yeah.
And it was great to just have somebody just to talk about stuff with. So in a way, it almost doesn't matter who you're with. It's just having that, another person there that you can
Yeah.
talk, kind of talk with. So, just me sharing about my writing with somebody, just through verbalizing it,
Yeah.
I start to connect and start to know stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like the perfect person. I don't think it's just
Hmm.
kind of find some community.
Yeah. I love that. And I like what you said about just showing up and trying not to overthink it. I think a lot of us are definitely like, if I go to a writing group or a meetup, it has to be perfect and we have to all get along and be the same type of writer. But I think you're right. I think the important thing is showing up not just for the other writers, but for yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's also an important thing too, is that thing
Mm-hmm.
of helping. I think like helping other writers. I think being in a mindset of like I'm there to give somebody else feedback, because
Yeah.
when I give somebody else feedback, or if I'm trying to help somebody else, it ends up kind of helping me as well.
Yeah.
But I think like as a writer, you also want to be helping other writers, however that is, if
Absolutely.
it's reading their stuff or whatever. So if you kind of come to a group also going, well, what is
Yeah.
it, what can I bring to this group? Is what can I, whatever
Mhm.
experience I have, is that going to be useful to somebody?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really healthy way of viewing it too, right? Like, what can
Mhm.
I give? Because everyone brings like their own unique journeys and backgrounds and specialties, and you never know what kind of information someone might be looking for.
Yeah, no, exactly, exactly. And I think you do kind of go, what is it? Oh, do I have to like do I have to know all my three act structure, and
Yeah.
I have to have some English degree and stuff, and that being able to just kind of go in there honestly and give people based on your experience or your intuition and stuff. I think being able to
Yeah.
say, I don't know about that. It doesn't work for me, but I don't know why.
Hmm.
And just being honest about
Hmm.
stuff, and then listening, I think, is also an important part of that. Yeah, it's a big deal. But I went to film school as well. So that was a big thing.
Oh,
It's like I went to film school, and it was like you're just surrounded by people all the time. And that's also a different way of doing it too. And I think there's
yeah.
something in that too when you go to a profession or like a program or a degree program or art school or whatever, you kind of
Hmm.
you also come out with a group of people who are kind of doing and the same thing and thinking the same
Yeah.
thing and moving in the same direction. and that can also be really useful too. Like I think there's like
Absolutely.
people would be like, well, you don't need that because with the internet you can always find somebody. But I think also being in that structured environment and going with people through that same structured environment
Yeah.
can also generate a sort of a kind of community that has its own sort of life as well. It can be really
That's
useful.
interesting. Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think there's a lot to be said for like that cohort, right? When you're in school and you have similar goals or the same goal and you're working through the same materials, it's a really unique opportunity to be able to work with those other creatives and maybe have the
Mm.
same questions and come to the same solutions.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just knowing somebody for a while, having to like
Yeah.
kind of be with somebody for a while, and maybe you're getting kind of in sync with them or
Yeah.
not. But you can kind of go, oh, they're doing that. Should I be doing that? And you get some
Yeah.
maybe some rivalry going or competition or I don't know, but you're it's like you're in, like you're on a race and you sort of like you
Yeah.
keep seeing that person out of the corner of your eye or whatever, and it kind of it gives you some I get like with any community, I guess, but it kind of gives you
Yeah.
some way to measure yourself, which can be great,
Yeah.
sometimes unhealthy, but it gives you often better than just being off by yourself in a drift. And
Yeah.
I think that's the thing for me is I really and it's been a problem lately, I would say, is that kind of sort of shutting myself off from community and kind of being adrift and going, well, it's just
Yeah.
me and my stuff and ideas, and you and I can kind of feel myself winding down a bit. And I
Mhm.
think being around people, fellow writers or fellow creatives, it gets me excited and it kind of gives me you just feel like there's more of a reason to do it. So
Yeah.
even if I'm just writing this stuff and people are going to read it next week, it's like people are going to read this next week.
Yeah.
It's going to be just these four people, but whatever it is, it really it's something you can forget about, very quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice to have, I don't know if accountability is the right word, but like
Mm.
knowing that someone is going to be reading it and that they're probably looking forward to it and they're going to have questions about it. It's definitely a really encouraging way to like get those words out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so because there's that. Well, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to write the
Mhm.
screenplay, whatever, and eventually people will read it and there'll be an audience for it, and that's
Yeah.
great. But is that a year down the line? Is that like 5 years down the line? It's like that's a
Yeah.
long time to delay gratification.
Yeah.
But if we can be like, I'm going to write the scene, and then somebody next week's going to read it, and you get that experience of like I created a thing, it went in
Mhm.
front of somebody experienced that thing, I got feedback from that person, and
Mhm.
that loop gets
Oh
completed
yeah.
more quickly than like over 5 years, if ever.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of writing, you have a
Mhm.
really cool graphic novel out. It's called
Mhm.
Boudica. Did I say that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. So, what I know you've gone to film school and I know you've written a lot of different things. What was it
Mhm.
like writing a graphic novel?
Well, it's actually interesting because it ties in with the film school. So Boudica is a she was a it's a, kind of a famous person in British
Mhm.
history. She was a Celtic warrior queen who led a revolt against the Romans, big slaughterhouse of a revolt against the
Mhm.
Romans, and almost threw the Romans out of Britain in 60 AD, which if she
Okay,
had, world history would have been very different.
very
So
different.
she's sort of like a famous kind of folklore hero in Britain. And I'd written a screenplay, a feature length screenplay about
Okay,
her, so this was a feature screenplay,
oh cool.
and it had done the rounds in Hollywood, and it was really well received, and people were like, "Oh, this is great, we love this." Female lead, too expensive, not going to happen.
Mm.
But everybody was like, which often happens, like, "We love this. This is great.
Mm.
What else do you have?"
Yeah.
um, but so it had been around for one, and then it was sitting around for ages, and I had wanted to do a graphic novel for a while, and there was a company, independent company called Marcosia Comics in the UK. Marcosia is sort of anybody who's done comics in the UK has kind of passed through Marcosia at some point. It's
Yeah.
almost like the Roger Corman of comics, sort of
Okay.
indie comics. Um, and I'd spoken to Harry Marcos, the head of the company. He was like, "Well, you've got, what have you got?" And I was like, "Oh, the script I'd really like to do." And it's like that sounds great. And then he hooked me up with a great artist in Sweden named Johan Schwarz, who's dynamite. And it was the first graphic novel he had done. It's the first graphic novel I had done, even though I'd loved graphic novels and comics and really thought of it, but for a long time. And we did it over. It was kind of in the days. was sort of it was before the pandemic, so it was like
Okay.
it wasn't Zoom wasn't like a it was quite a few years before the pandemic, but it wasn't like Zoom was integrated into everything
Yeah.
you did, like it is now. So we did it over Skype back then. And we only met in person like once or twice. But what was really interesting was that thing of like, okay, it's a screenplay. And
Yeah.
so it should be a really easy transformation into a graphic novel. It's kind of basically just let's just like do the storyboards for the thing. And I discovered it's nothing like it. So it was like completely different. And that was
Yeah.
really fascinating, was this thing of like, oh, okay. It's like, so movies happen in time, like
Yeah.
music, it's like a thing that happens in time. Um, and graphic novels and images happen outside of time. It's an image, and you can
Interesting.
spend as
Okay.
long as you want moving around that image or on that page for as long as you want. You're not stuck in a timeline,
Mhm.
you know. And I kept wanting to do stuff on the page that was like in a movie, like, okay, this happens and this
Yeah.
happens, and then there's this moment and this happens, so like you do in a movie.
Hmm.
And that was a really interesting sort of revelation, that like doing a graphic novel is not you're outside you're thinking in images, what you're outside of that normal timeline of a
Yeah.
movie. So you still have a drama, but you
Hmm.
can't do you can't do like hold
Hmm.
on this shot and then suddenly this happens. You can kind of imitate some of that, but the reader is always just going to take their time.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was really, really interesting. And also just that thing of being able to compress, throw stuff out, and like stuff that I might have in a screenplay, like a whole scene and a few moments and a cut of this and that. Like, how can I say that rather than doing it in a scene? Could I just literally do that entire scene and give convey all that information that I did in that scene, like in just one image, one picture, and
Oh.
maybe with a couple lines of dialogue, and people can look around and get all the information they need
Ah.
without going this, then this, then this, then this, and this, like you would
Yeah.
do in a movie. These are all lessons I learned after the fact. So like now, if I went
Yeah.
back and did it again, I would do it completely differently. But that was really fascinating, is to find out that what you'd think, of course, a screenplay would translate to a graphic novel perfectly. Like, it was
Yeah.
completely different animal. It was a completely different thing.
That's so interesting. I
Yeah,
never would have thought about it that way. And so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's really cool to hear about like the learning process and yeah, how you can have the same story, but you're presenting it in such a different way.
Mm-mm. And also just dialogue, because I like dialogue, and I'm
Yeah.
overly verbose with dialogue. I always got to be like, no, cut that, cut that, cut that.
Yeah.
And so it's real, looking back at the comic now, at Buddha now, it's just so talky. It's just so much dialogue. And and I know now I could have gone out and cut probably maybe even like 80% of the dialogue that's in that thing. I could
Interesting.
probably have cut out, and it still would have been fine, because it's still like, what are the pictures saying? What are those
Yeah.
pictures saying? Which is kind of like cinema as well, but
Yeah.
even more so with that graphic novel. And that was the
Yeah.
thing too, is like, just like um yeah, it was just fascinating. And of course, you go through any experience like that, and as I said, it's like you learn the lessons after you've done it.
Yeah.
So the next time it'll be different. But yeah, it was really cool.
What was your favorite part? Like if you had to choose just like one or two things, because I can tell just from talking to you that it sounds like it was a really enjoyable experience.
Mhm.
Was there one thing that you were like, oh, this was the best part?
It was yeah, it is that thing of just seeing those, because I had that film background, and
Yeah.
it was just seeing those images of the thing that you had been writing about and thinking about, and just seeing the image of like, okay,
Yeah.
that's the image that I was thinking about, or maybe not thinking about,
Yeah.
but just seeing that transformation of the words, the
Hmm.
idea that I had the idea, and then the words, and then just seeing that picture appear
Hmm.
that came out of that. And that was the
Yeah.
thing. And being able to also discover what working with someone, um, and
Yeah.
working with an artist, and being able to see his take on it. So stuff that I never
Mm.
would have thought of.
Yeah.
Um, and him having the idea. And I was another thing too. I was quite controlling.
It
I think Johan would
happens.
say, "Ugh." Yeah. I mean, we still had a really good relationship, but it was like,
Yeah.
oh, could you try this? And he was like, yes, I will try that. Well, maybe we could try this. But then, when he was able to like play it and just try, oh, I just
Yeah.
tried this dumb thing, and you're like, oh, that's amazing. I never would have thought of that. There's
Yeah.
one frame in there where it's like a um uh I think it's like it's the kind of the birthday of the two young girls in there, I think. And there's like these two ponies pulling a chariot. And it's just like one sort of shot of them kind of on the chariot, or one frame or panel. I guess panel is the word.
Mm.
And he just did this thing with it that was like amazing. And it was just this gorgeous kind of low angle shot of these, these
Yeah.
ponies and the kind of the mistletoe hanging off. And it was just like really, really cool. And
Yeah.
just seeing like that. And I guess that's the exciting thing. It's like having that audience, right? Of like we're talking about, I write something and then somebody else reads it and they have a response. It was the same kind of
Yeah.
thing. Like I write something and the artist has an experience and has their response. And that was really, really
Yeah.
cool.
That's amazing. I love that. And I love hearing how, like, when you're working with a good artist, and I feel this way about editors too, like, they approach your work with the same goal, but like their vision can just make it even stronger.
Yeah, that thing of like where, yeah, that's what yeah, you should never take it for granted that's going to happen. But when it does happen and somebody goes, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then they come back with something that's like, yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
what I was talking about, and can kind
Exactly.
of complete like the thing that maybe the thought or the intention that you
Hmm.
had that you started, that they complete it with something extra that you hadn't
For
thought of.
sure. I like that. So now when you're starting a project, whether it's a script or a graphic novel or a story, where do you start from? Do you have the idea for the plot first? Do you start with themes? What does that starting process look like for you?
Yeah, I'll do a yeah, there'll just be an idea or a concept usually. I know some people start with like characters, or like I have an idea
Hmm.
for a character, and that'll kind of go from there. And
Yeah.
but usually it'll just be um often just like a high concept idea. So
Oh,
there's like an
interesting.
idea I'm having now, which is like, okay, there's this, what if this and this, and often it's like it'll just be an emotional feeling about that
Okay.
idea. So often it'll be like a mood and setting and the kind of the kind of almost the vibe of the idea.
I
Um,
like that.
and I do think a lot about audience, like kind of
Okay.
what I would want as an audience to feel, kind of coming out of it. And then it will usually just be scenes. So I rarely will like sort of try to plot something out
Okay.
beforehand.
Yeah.
It'll often be like putting ornaments on a Christmas tree. I'll be like, oh, I know there's this really cool scene.
Mm.
I don't know where it goes, but I think this is like this really cool thing is going to happen probably in the middle-ish, maybe, and I know
Interesting.
there's that.
Yeah.
And there's also this really cool thing probably or have over here. And then maybe it starts out with this thing, and I kind of like start sticking stuff up. And
Okay.
then that will start to form a storyline a bit. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't often, unless I'm forced to, it's not a bad thing to be forced to, but I won't often write a like a detailed treatment or outline or something beforehand,
Okay.
usually.
Yeah.
Um, Although I was talking to somebody earlier today actually about that thing of like being forced to sort of say, this is what this is about. These are the
Yeah.
characters, and that beforehand will definitely help you. But I
Yeah.
will tend to avoid that.
That's fair. I love that idea of like envisioning it, like and thinking of the different scenes. I think that's so important. I have the impression that a lot of writers, when they're starting, do start with like an outline, like a solid, like this is the whole plot. But I like the magic of thinking of scenes. And
Mm,
I like the magic of starting with the vibe and the mood and being like, this is how I want people to feel when they're experiencing this.
mm. Yeah, there's something because when you come out of like a movie or you read a book or
Yeah.
something, it's like there are these moments that you remember. You remember that,
Hmm.
that one scene where something happens, or when she does this, or what, there'll be those
Yeah.
like those things that you take away. And you don't
Yeah.
have like I always have this when I come out of a movie.
Yeah.
It's like, what was that about? And I kind of like I'm like almost in a daze when I come out of a movie, and I can't.
Yeah,
If you ask me what
same.
the plot is, I really couldn't tell you what the plot is. It'll take me a while, but
Yeah.
I'll remember like these moments, these scenes, or these images, or kind of how
Yeah.
I felt about stuff. Um, which is and it kind of goes back to that thing of the graphic novel in a way of just like these
Yeah.
moments kind of out of time, like this image or this moment or this thing. It's not so much the plot and the story. It's those kind of those little those instants that
Yeah.
happen, instances. Um, so I think it's like something that I do think, or that's it's something I've done too when I'm writing a movie,
Hmm.
writing a screenplay. And even writing a like I wrote a novel a while ago that almost like playing a trailer or something about it, like what's the
Yeah.
trailer going to be like, and then you can kind of
Okay.
see those images of like, oh, there's this and then that dramatic moment, and they kind of you can kind of
Yeah.
spot these like where are these cool moments going to be
Mm.
that are the it's almost like you can imagine a kid coming out of a movie or a kid coming out of a story and trying to explain it
Yeah.
and going, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and what they'll say, they'll spout just the kind of the cool
Yeah.
things that they thought of, that they saw, probably not in
Yeah.
any specific story order. They're not going to like tell you the plot, but they'll be excited about these things that happened.
Oh,
So in a
yeah.
way, I still go into a story thinking about that. What is that? What are those exciting moments? And what are those exciting things? And then a way, then being grown up about it, figure out what's the actual story and support for this
Hmm.
thing that's gonna be a ship that holds water. It isn't just gonna sink in the bay
Yeah.
before you get out of there.
That's exciting. I love that idea. And I love the idea of just thinking about like someone talking about our stories and being like, this happened and it was, here's how I felt about it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I think that's yeah, that because you are, yeah, you do ultimately want to do something, or at least I do want to do something for an audience. I'm kind of not that, and some people are the other way too, but so
mm,
I'm not that interested in like, I'm going to write this thing for myself because it's just my
yeah,
thoughts about my stuff. And that's interesting that there are people who are very much like that. It's like, I just want to write my thing. I kind of don't care what the audience thinks about it. Don't care.
yeah,
Um, but I'm not that kind of writer.
yeah.
I think there's definitely kind of those
There's a
two
difference. Yeah.
two extremes. Yeah.
So now you are a very experienced writer. And when you're
Hmm.
writing and you're working on a story or a scene, how do you know if it's working? Like, what tells you this is good?
That is a good question. A lot of it is just trusting your taste again.
Oh,
So
okay.
that thing of the audience, I think that try to be your own best audience and going, what is this something that I would love? Is this something I would
Yeah.
like? And trying to be honest about it. Um, and then also just giving it to other people to see if it works.
Yeah.
Um, and it's funny because I was saying, oh, you've got to, think about an audience. But on the other hand, it's like if it's something that I'm excited about that I would love if I were an audience,
Yeah.
sometimes that's enough. It's like, okay, yeah, it
Okay.
may
Yeah.
not be your thing, but if I can go like, I would really see this thing, then that
Yeah.
can be enough. Um, but I think you do have to have sort of ways of kind of testing and measuring. So like, if
Yeah.
you're flying a plane, you go like, well, I think this is flying pretty well. It's like you want actually people to get out there with some gear
Yeah.
and some instruments to make sure the plane is safe and okay.
Hmm.
So like structure is a good thing. Um, and being able to sort of say, okay, well, where is the climax of this thing? Where
Yeah.
is the um, and kind of going back to those basic techniques for things for scenes. And often I'll know it's like I won't necessarily when something is good, but I'll know when it's not working
Okay.
because I'll just go, this isn't working and I don't know
Yeah.
why.
Something's off. Hmm.
And often it'll be maybe a structural thing.
Okay.
So, um, like, does the character really want something in this scene? Is this a scene that kind of feeds into the main sequence, the thing?
Yeah.
And I tend to think as a screenwriter, I tend to think in sequences, um, which can also be a thing too, where you think about like beginning, middle, and end. And
Yeah.
like your first act, we're like, okay, the first act happens, and then a second act happens, and third, and what you can get caught in is just like scene after scene after scene after scene after scene,
Hmm.
without actually having these bigger movements kind of built in
Oh,
there.
interesting.
Uh,
Yeah.
so it's like I'll just write a whole bunch of scenes until I get to the end of the first act. Then I
Okay.
write a whole bunch of scenes until I get to the end of the second act. So within those acts, there needs to be other separate sequences and movements.
Yeah. That's a really good
Um,
point.
but yeah, I think that maybe it gets back to having people to bounce stuff off too.
Yeah.
And I think, and it is almost like when you give somebody, and you probably have this experience too, like the moment you hit send on an email, you know what you've done wrong. So
You're
yeah, I'm
like, oh
sending this off to
no,
somebody, and you're
that.
like, oh no, that I didn't. So it's like
Yeah.
the moment a reader has it or sees it, you it like kind of puts another set of eyes on it already, and you're
Mhm.
already thinking, oh yeah, that's right. So I think
Yeah.
ultimately being able to share it with people can, or just the act of sharing it
Yeah.
starts to give me another perspective that I'm like, oh yeah, actually that's probably needs something.
Yeah. Well, and I think it requires a certain amount of vulnerability to share with other
Hmm.
people, but I think it's also so important to help us become stronger writers.
Yeah, absolutely. And to get that practice.
Hmm.
We're saying a thing of like kind of completing that loop of like I made something, now it
Yeah.
gets in front of somebody rather than I made
Yeah.
something and it goes in a drawer.
Absolutely.
I had an artist friend who said that his job, he thought his purpose in life was two things. It was like to make art and then to make it available to people. Um, and he was always said that those two things were really important. So it was like to make
That's cool.
something, but then also to deliver it to
Yeah.
somebody and to kind of
I like
and
that.
to practice that. You almost have to like practice delivering it to people.
For sure. That's so important. Neal, you've been a wonderful guest. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to have a chat.
It's been super fun. Before we say goodbye, where can people find your work?
So you can always find me at trying to think where I'm a Blue Sky.
Okay.
I'm Neal Romanek. That's Neal Romanek, Romanek. There aren't many of us around, so any Google search will take you to where I am. I'm a publisher and do a publication called AU, where we
Okay.
focus on kind of problems and solutions for the media industry, media and entertainment. So we do stuff there. And yeah, just you can find me on my YouTube, at Blue Sky, Instagram. So look for Neal Romanek, and you will find me.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much again, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Happy writing.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you.